Hi, I'm Alan Hedblum. Welcome to our show, a place to feel like you belong. During the course of our conversation, you will see words and phrases appearing at the bottom of the screen. These will be explained later in a follow-up segment called What'd You Say? For now, let's welcome today's guest, Anthony Chang. Our guest, Anthony Chang, is a very smart guy. He holds a bachelor's degree in medical imaging and radiological sciences from Chiang University in Taiwan. After coming to the US, he earned his PhD in medical physics from the University of Texas Health Science Center at San Antonio. And today, he works as a research professor at the Van Andel Institute in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Anthony, welcome to Feel Like You Belong.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
So you're doing some really interesting work. It's starting to gain both national and international attention at the Van Andel Institute. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, I think our job is very, very interesting. I'm working on figure out a method how to detect cancer earlier. Basically, it's using the imaging ways to locate where the cancer is, and not only try to locate where the tumor is, but also understand what kind of tumor is that. Basically, we hope we can use this kind of method to revolutionary change the way how we see and manage the cancer.
Okay, and you're not working alone. Who are you working with?
I feel lucky to work with a bright teams. I have several students, and I have a radiochemist, and I have software engineers working with me, and we have a great fun, great time. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is because you have a PhD in physics. So this is really the physics side of medicine. How does that work in layman's terms? For
actually,
viewers?
I mean, I always like to talk about. I have a degree in medical physics. So medical physics means we don't know medical, we don't know physics. So, but I mean, we do have the knowledge. We are focused on how to apply the physics in the medical field. My expertise is how to apply physics to create the radiological images for the medical doctors to use. So, for example, we have a lot of different kind of imaging modalities people heard in the hospital. For example, PET, CT, MRI, ultrasound. They all use different kind of physics principles to create images without open people up.
Good thing.
Yeah, that's a great thing. So this is what we're working on, and also Another primary things we're working on in medical physics field is how to calculate and plan the radiation therapy. When we treat a cancer patient, if the medical doctor determine he or she has to go through the radiation therapy, then we have the medical physicist's job is trying to make the therapeutic plan about which angle we should start shooting the radiations to the patients to give the tumor enough dose to kill the tumor and without hurting the surrounding tissues.
Now, where are you in your progress towards your ultimate goal?
Right now, I think we're in a very beginning stage, but we have a great progress on that. My goal is I choose to work in a research instead of working in a clinic because I think in a research field we have a chance to impact the bigger populations. My dream is one day we can, for patients get into the hospital, we can catch the cancer way earlier. If we can catch the cancer earlier, then we have a way more means to be able to treat the patients. And also, I want to use the imaging. I hope the imaging technology can offer the physician way more information than what we have today, and so the physician can make the right decisions. For example, right now when you treat a cancer, what you really need to know is where the cancer located. What are the characteristics of the tumors? And once you start treating the tumor, you want to know if this drug works. And also, after a few period of time, you want to see if the cancer coming back or not. And we don't have very good technology for these kind of aspects in, in today's clinical medicine. So I want to use, and I hope the imaging technology can solve these problems.
And it sounds like the technology now is there, or is already moving in the direction of being much more precise than, you know, scalpel biopsy kind of.
Exactly. So right now there's two very popular terms in the medical field. One is called personalized medicine, because we have to already learn there are not two people are exactly the same. Everybody is different. So you cannot treat everybody the same. And the second thing is called molecular imaging. So right now for the imaging technology, we're not just looking for anatomical or structure difference anymore. We're looking for molecular activities. What is actually happening in patient's body right now at this moment? So I have to say, personalized medicine is the ultimate goals of treating the patients. To achieve personalized medicine, you need to have tools to understanding the difference between each subject. So molecular imaging is definitely going to play a very important role in future medicine.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
You have always been a curious person, and
Yes.
this was shown very early in your life, particularly when you were at school as a young student and they had nap time at your school, but you weren't a very cooperative student. Tell us that story.
Yeah, I'm always a very curious person, but I'm always an outlaw person too. So I don't like to take a nap in the afternoon. But when I was in elementary school, there's always a 1 hour nap times after lunch, and that's really brutal to me, because I just cannot sit on my seat and take a nap because I'm not sleepy at all. So after a few weeks, we went to school. I figured out a way to legally escape from the napping time, because the things I do is we're actually allowed to use the restroom during nap time. So every day when nap time starts, I would just raise my hand and say, hey, I have to use the restroom. The teacher can say no. And I went to the restroom, and the teacher cannot control how much time I spend in the restroom. So basically stay in the restroom for the whole hours. And then I figured it's so boring when I was there in a restroom for an hour. So I started to doing some research about toilet, and that's how I learned how toilet works and how to fix them. And the cool part is for that restroom, there's a automatic flush system, so there's a control panels over there. So I learned how to set it up and how to fix all those kind of things.
So you got an early degree in plumbing engineering.
I guess so. So
self-taught degree.
Yeah. So to the end of the semester, and there's one day the toilet in my house is broken, and my mom's trying to call a plumber to fix it. I say, I can do that, and then I fixed the toilet. And my mom said, where did you learn that?
You were how old?
About 80 years old. And how did you learn that? I was like, I spent a whole semester in the toilet doing research. And then that's my mom figured out, and I started talking to the teacher. So I was allowed to maybe go to the library instead of go to the restroom.
Well, and you'd learned pretty much everything that the restroom could teach you, and so now time to move on to the library.
Yeah, I got promoted. Yeah. So
now you have chosen to work in the U.S.,
yes.
But you come from Taiwan, and in our earlier discussion, we were talking about, there are a lot of elements of Taiwanese culture that you're very proud of.
Oh yeah.
What are some of those?
I think it's the Taiwanese culture, the Taiwanese people working really hard, and we have a very good work ethics. This is something I'm really appreciate that. We are not a violent, aggressive person, but we have very strong willpowers. If something we want to do and we want to achieve, we're always moving forward and working on that and get to there. So the culture from Taiwan actually told me you have to have a strong willpower, and to achieve your goal, you don't have to have a lot of drama or scuffles, physical fighting on that. as long as you show your willpower and that's the right things to do, keep moving toward to that, and things will get to where you are.
Sure. And you actually channeled that specific energy when you started to take karate.
Yes.
Yeah, and you actually achieved some significantly high levels within that martial art. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I always liked martial art, and when I went to college, I determined to officially learning something and to get a very specific trainings on that. And I give myself a goal. I say before I graduate from college, I want to become national champion, and everybody was laughing at me. But I hope, to myself, I know I may can achieve that, but even I don't achieve that, if I am high, then I can do something, because I just don't want to be a regular black belt. I want to be something. To me, black belt doesn't mean something. If you want to learn martial art, you really need to know how to fight, and you really can fight, have to be able to fight. So to go to the competition, to challenge yourself is actually a goal. So I work very, very hard on that 3 or 4 years. So I always say that my major is karate in college, and my minor is the radiological science. And so at my junior years, the end of my junior years, I won a bronze medalist in the national karate competitions in Taiwan.
Third best in the whole country.
That year, I would say.
Well, that's
in that competitions. Yeah. Sure. So and I play in heavyweight, and I think that's actually a very, very proud moment to me. But the most important things for that experience is the things and the philosophy I learned from the 3 or 4 years while I was practicing.
And in the heavyweight division, you're facing guys could be much bigger than you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I'm the smallest guy in the heavyweight. So because the way we actually categorize person or put people in different classes is by the body weight. And the heavyweight is they only have the minimum bar, and there's no upper limit.
And up.
And up. It's and up. So you can see a lot of like a 6'5" guys with like a 6'5" and 200, 250 pounds, even 300 pounds. They're gonna fight with you.
What did that challenge teach you?
It teach me a lot. I think it's actually how to control your fears, how to face your fears. And most of the time when you stand in the rings, fear doesn't help you anymore. And this is a problem, a prompt and a clear problem you have to face. So instead of thinking about feel nervous, feel scared, you rather think about what your strategy should be, what your technique should be, and then how to solve these situations. So how to face the fear, how to use those kind of fear, transfer those kind of fear, become your own strengths. That's the very, very important things I learned from this experience. And the second thing is don't whining. I mean, no matter how good your training is, no matter how good you are, there's always a chance you get knocked out. You're always gonna get kicked in the face or punch in the belly. It always happens all the time, and then the best guy got knocked out all the time too. So sometimes it's because you're lucky, because the other person got lucky. Sometimes because they are better than you. But no matter how, you got knocked out, you got punched. It's the truth, it's the reality. So don't whining, stand up, organize yourself, coming back.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So eventually you did come to the US to study.
Yes.
And what in your time, because you've lived here since?
2002.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so in that dozen years, what have you come to appreciate about the US? What works here for you?
I really like the United States. I like the atmosphere. I appreciate the values of these countries, and I also like the peoples over here. I mean, the things I like the most is everything is very straightforward. I mean, I remember I read some articles compared the way people think from different countries. In Asia, most people, the way people think are more, how to say that, maybe it's like curvy or
indirect.
Indirect, that's a word. And here, people think it's more direct, and then they dare to speak out about their opinions. the bad part of this is maybe it will create some argument and conflict, but as long as it's a constructive opinions, I mean, it's very easy for people to understand each other, where each other stands for, and then moving toward to the solutions. I think it's I appreciate this kind of philosophy a lot. I think it's a very efficient ways to getting better. Yeah.
You've also had a chance to travel fairly extensively in the United States.
That's actually another thing. I mean, I spend a lot of time on the road. I've been to 44 states, and I actually
more than most of our viewers.
I bet. And I actually spent 4 months after my graduation. After I graduated from my PhD, to just have a road trip. I camp and hike almost every national park west of Texas. And I really, really appreciated the scenery and landscape a lot. There's a lot of national park. I think that's a world treasure. It's just so beautiful. And also, I met a lot of very, very interesting people. I've been to a lot of small towns, and that actually changes my visions to the world, and it changes my life. Yeah.
We have to wrap up here in just a minute. The theme of our show is belonging. And it occurred to me when we were talking the last time, one thing that I sensed from you about how you fit in Grand Rapids is your relationship with your students. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was recruited to Van Andel Institute in 2010 to set up the Animal Imaging Center. And at that time, nothing's there. And we don't have this kind of program in Grand Rapids training the personnel we need, since this is a very, very new field in the scientific field. So I started to looking for students, and luckily I find a lot of bright and talented students from the GVSU, from the MSU here. And we have a great time in my lab. And right now, after three years of hard working, I'm so glad to see them grow, and then they all get a very, very good achievement. I have one master student this is won the Thesis of the Year of the GVSU, and I have 2 students who got accepted to medical school this year, and I have 2 students actually won the travel award from one of the largest international meetings in our field. And then the most important thing is they both are GVSU undergraduate students, and they are competing with the graduate student from all over the world, including those kind of big universities, Stanford, Harvard, Johns Hopkins.
So it's a special relationship that you've actually been able to create in your lab, in your working relationship.
I don't want to say I create that. I just feel like I feel lucky to find a student, and we all have the same pathing, the same passion, and we all believe the medical imaging going to impact the human health in the future. So we like to work with each other and explore our ideas and make things happen. And I really enjoy the atmosphere to working with them.
Sounds like good synergy.
Yeah, it is.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Anthony, our time has absolutely flown by, but I want to thank you so much for joining us in the studio today.
No, it's my great pleasure. It's a great time. Thank you.
Super, super. And for our viewers, please stay tuned, because we'll be coming back in just a moment with our follow-up segment called What'd You Say? Opening people up. This means surgically cutting a patient open in order to look inside. Shoot the radiation. Here, Anthony uses the word shoot as an analogy to using a gun. What he means is to direct or target the radiation at a specific area of the patient. If there were other expressions that you didn't understand during our conversation with Anthony, you can go to our webpage called What'd You Say for those explanations. What's the best way for immigrants to make a living in New York City? Well, if you're like hundreds of newcomers from Bangladesh, the answer is the NYPD, specifically working in the Parking Enforcement Division. It stands to reason in a city with millions of parked cars, many of them have to be parked illegally, and someone has to give them tickets. Although they make up less than 1% of New York's population, Bangladeshis comprise more than 10% of the city's 3,000 parking officers. It turns out it's a good job for someone with only a high school diploma, with a starting salary of $29,000 a year, generous pensions, and insurance benefits. You might ask, why so many Bangladeshis in the parking ticket business? A lot has to do with word of mouth. Specifically, Shaukat Khan, a 53-year-old traffic agent who gives seminars to his countrymen and helps them prepare for the civil service exam required for the job. If you get a ticket in the Big Apple, don't bother yelling at the ticketing officer, "Go back to your country." That sort of thing doesn't bother veteran agent Jamil Sarwar, who just ignores them because he knows he's just doing his job. "Hey," he says, "I work for the city." According to the New York Times, about 1/4 of Bangladeshis who become parking agents have gone on to become police officers in the New York Police Department. And in a city with such diversity of citizens, it really makes sense to have officers who represent that same diversity. If you have stories of immigrants doing interesting work, drop us a line at feellikeyouBelong.com. And we just might share your story next on What's Up. As we've discussed on previous shows, one difficult aspect of learning a second language is adapting to humor that involves plays on words. These are also called puns. The appropriate way to receive a pun when it is told is to pretend that you really didn't think it was so funny. You might stare at the pun teller or even let out a groan. Aww. We don't want to give the punsters credit for their clever wordplay, but usually we end up smiling or maybe even laughing. Here's a clever wordplay that most Americans would chuckle over. The question, is it funny to you? The importance of nonverbal communication goes without saying. Did you laugh? Did you groan? This joke involves a play on words that a friend of mine once made at a meeting. If you didn't get his joke, check out our What's So Funny webpage for the explanation.